What are your night shift horror stories? Part 2. I know this thread is for horror stories or just scary experiences and shit. But I kinda want to break it up with something nice. So my first job after high school was working at Walmart. I eventually got moved into the overnight shift. One day after about a month or so I was walking to my car having just clocked out, when I saw this little baby bird just sitting in the parking lot. So I went over to check and see if it was okay. He was fine. The little dude was just chilling far as I could tell. I'd had a long night so I crouched down and just watched it for about 10 minutes. I was pretty close so I reached down and stuck my finger out and moved it closer. Once I was touching it he hopped onto my finger and just sat there. I stood up. My legs were starting to ache. And I just looked at him and softly pet him, and took a couple photos because it was fucking awesome. After a couple minutes he flew away. I got in my car and went to a diner for my breakfast/dinner. Honestly the coolest thing to ever happen to me at work. I worked at a gas station on the night shift for a year. It was pretty deserted a lot of the time. I didn't see too many bad things except some runaway teens. A super creepy guy who wanted me to date his son after he found out I was married. And a guy who just stared at me the whole time with just pure hatred but didn't say more than 2 words to me. But the worst thing was on my first night working there a regular came in with a gun saying he was robbing the place. After what felt like forever of me just frozen in fear he started laughing and saying it was just a prank. That was 7 years ago and I still hate his guts. I worked night shift solo at a convenience store in a really rough neighborhood. I didn't have issues too often. But the big one I remember was around the 4th of July. A couple of teenagers/young adults thought it would be fun to open up the door and toss about 4 of those massive smoke bombs into the store and bolt. The entire store was fogged out. I ended up calling the fire department in order to help me ventilate the building. My hyperbolic-prone imagination kicked in and I thought it was an elaborate setup to rob the place in a way that the cameras wouldn't be able to see. Nothing happened. But damn it if it wouldn't have been an effective way to do it. Overnight at the supermarket. Man stole the live lobsters and ran out of the store with them in his sweatpants. Like all in his pants. Lobsters falling out of his pockets. Out of the cuffs of his pants. Etc. Night manager running after him yelling. It was quite a sight. Also, one morning the newspaper delivery guy came to drop off the newspapers at 4 a.m. and some rando guy that seemed to be on drugs that I had just cashed out jumped in the newspaper guy's car and took off. Night manager chased him as he sped off. I was doing a night shift at a bodega in Brooklyn. And this homeless lady comes running in yelling and crying. She went to the beer section and broke the window with something. I went to go check it out. And she was hysterically crying. Using a shard of glass to cut her wrist open. Not just clean cuts. But like gouging it open. Blood all over her shirt. No clue how she broke the window. There was a hospital literally a block and a half down and the moment I saw her with blood streaming down her wrist I just sort of manhandled her over my shoulder and ran to the hospital with her on me. She was crying and screaming and hitting me with her other arm. These guys who hang out on the block saw me run down the block with a tiny, screaming, bleeding woman over my shoulder. And they jolted after me thinking I was kidnapping her. They caught up to me and tackled me and she fell to the ground. And they threw me against a wall and kept asking me what the fuck I was doing. And I said I was taking her to the hospital. And they all quickly realized what was going on and got her up and to the hospital. The whole ordeal happened in like the span of maybe 150 to 200 seconds. I had a concussion from when they knocked me to the floor. She survived apparently. No clue besides that. Not so much a horror story but to a new nurse aide I was perplexed. My memory doesn't serve me super well. A lady came into the nursing home, extremely frail and bruised from head to toe, talking about how she needs a new suit. This isn't the right suit. Etc. LVN puts it together she's talking about cards. We try to play cards but she just complains about them. She literally seems afraid of the deck. So I dramatically throw it on the ground like trying to take away their power. She starts sobbing. And we can't put her in her room, she screamed every time. So I hung out with her at the nursing station and tried to talk to her. To her disdain. And eventually just got my laptop out, would study during quiet nights, and played soothing music with scenery. That calmed her down quite a bit. I was gonna get off at 3 a.m. but then daylight savings hit. I used to work at my local college as a receptionist and I would close up around 9 at night. Even in summer it'd already be dark. It was a really big parking lot and as I was starting to make my way to my car, I noticed that someone was following me. I start walking specifically on the paths that have lights over them and try to look back at him every so often. He was wearing a large hoodie and had the hood up covering his face. As I started approaching my car, it was the only one in this lot. He started running at me. I got in my car and drove off as fast as I could. He just stayed standing in the parking lot as I went. I made a report to the campus security the next day. But nothing ever came of it. I started asking for a security guard to escort me to my car from then on. Nothing like it ever happened again. I just started directing morning news at a local TV station. About 10 minutes into my first show I felt a weird tingle run up my leg. It was enough for me to jump a bit and slap and itch at it. At the end of the hour-and-a-half show I had kind of forgotten about it. I went to the bathroom and was horrified to find out that a large cockroach crawled up my leg and parked itself comfortably right next to my balls for the entire newscast. Work in the winter for me is plowing and snow removal. It was late and I had been out for over 24 hours at this point. Pulled over into a small cul-de-sac with the nearest house being over 100 yards away so I could let the truck stay on so I could stay warm, 6-wheel Mac things loud. As I'm nodding off, there was a very loud bang and it felt like someone then pulled on my driver's side door handle. Luckily I always lock my truck doors. I immediately threw on every strobe/rear/headlight and started looking around and I saw absolutely nothing. It scared the shit out of me. Needless to say I never sleep anywhere other than lit parking lots now. Working hotel for years is amazing just for the sheer amount of experiences you get. Naked Asian guy drunk sleeping behind desk after cigarette break? Check. Pounds of weed/coke in duffel bag behind arcade machine? Check. Young kids almost getting ran over and chased by car in parking lot due to robbing each other for meth? Check. 76-year-old 2 weeks ago downing 7 bottles of vodka in 2 days and sleeping naked? False. Locks door so we have to break it down? Check. I have many more. I work as security in a mall. They didn't tell me my first night that the kids' machines don't turn off. They make a generic children laughter every 5 minutes. It's 4 a.m. and I'm walking around when I just hear the sound of laughter behind me. The kind you find in horror movies. Turns out I'm the idiot who walks to the noise. Not mine, but I used to work at a small hotel and the manager there told me a terrifying night shift story. It was about midnight when she got a call at the front desk from a man. He said that he's with his 8-year-old daughter who dances competitively and need advice on what she should wear. She gave him some basic fashion advice. He asked my manager, what about fishnet leggings? Do you think those are too sexy? Then proceeds to talk in graphic detail about how he thinks his own daughter has been trying to seduce him for weeks and how he's starting to enjoy seeing her dance in these cute outfits. Meanwhile my manager is looking through a computer system trying to figure out who this man is so she can call the cops. However, the room he was reportedly in was empty. The man ends up hanging the phone up before she could find out where he was truly calling from. A couple months later at around 11 p.m. my manager answers the desk phone. A familiar voice asked her if she could help him pick out an outfit for his daughter's next dance recital. She asked him, let me guess you want to know if she should wear fishnet leggings. The man immediately hangs up the phone. Used to work nights at a Home Depot. There was one time where for a week or so our store stayed open 24 hours. For the most part this wasn't really a problem. Typically nobody comes shopping for home improvement items at 2 in the morning, except that one couple that came looking for marble countertops at 1:30 in the morning, and the woman was wearing a nice dress. I guess there was also that one young lady who came looking for a toilet paper roll holder a little after midnight. I had just gotten off my first break, and she was wearing horts and one of those white with black belt stereotypical karate outfits. She was oddly specific about which roll holder to get. 2. But the real story lies within the insulation. It was nearing 3 in the morning and me and another guy were stocking insulation, as well as fixing the bays and some such maintenance. A bunch of big R30s had fallen in their bay, and while I was sorting through them a fucking hand came out of the mess and grabbed my arm. I lost my mind enough for not only the guy I was working with to freak out but also for my boss. who was across the store, to come check out the commotion. Turns out a homeless drunkard had come into the store at some point, and I can only assume before the night crew showed up, and had made a nest in the insulation where he fell asleep. The dude was in bad shape, too. Like, far gone into whatever inebriation that we had to call the police to remove him. I was always a little more cautious around the insulation after for at least the time the store stayed open 24 hours. I worked in Research Park third shift. My night started late, like 8 p.m. It was a normal quiet night. When early in my shift we were informed of a lockdown since we are in the University of Utah campus. We got text alerts and followed our protocol for these situations. Closed blinds entirely. Closed lab doors and locked and stayed low. It was unnerving. The sounds of sirens was apparent. The text alerts were of an active shooter on campus, which was terrifying to me. I am from CT. I still cry over the thought of Sandy Hook. It turns out the shooting was of the lovely Lauren McCluskey, murdered by her stalker ex-lying convict Tinder boyfriend. Lied about his identity and age. How terrifying. The police failed her horribly. Really heartbreaking to learn that night on the other side of campus, and she lost her life. Thanks for watching.